Hi everybody, welcome to Josiah is Right, and I'm going to talk to you about the history of muscle. That's my muscle guy face. That probably look pretty silly, but Penny, what's your muscle guy face? Show me your muscle guy face. Anyway, the history.
In the 1980s, wrestling, along with transforming robot cars, was a big deal. And, at least in my world, little else was that popular. Cashing in on that craze, Mattel brought us He-Man. I mean Muscle. Like those transforming VW bugs, the origins of these half-naked little, sometimes mohawked men goes farther back in time. To the country of Japan. No, not that far back in time. Ah, that's better, and yet somehow much, much worse. What Americans know as Muscle was originally a manga titled Kinnikuman, created by Yoshinori Nakai and Takashi Shimida, who worked together as Yadatamago, all of which I'm sure I pronounced incorrectly, as I had to repeat it several times to do this voiceover. Overlapping with its dumbed-down American cousin, it also ran for a whopping 137 episodes as a cartoon by Toei Animation from 1983 to 1986. It was designed as a parody of Ultraman and similar characters. The plot was wonderfully Japanese and basically involved intergalactic wrestling for the throne. It was also probably too violent for American kids at the time. But not for me. I totally could have handled it. The characters' personalities were largely defined by their designs, and their designs were often awesomely absurd. For example, the main character, Kinnikuman, was Muscle Man because he looked like a muscle man. While the toys were produced by Mattel in the United States, they were originally produced by Bandai. So we should quickly talk about Keshi. Keshi is derived from Keshigomu, which actually means eraser. Keshi is simply small rubber collectibles. They're small toys that are infectiously collectible. Returning from Japan to the United States, 3-year-old me was likely at high risk of choking on a tiny piece of pink plastic when Muscle invaded in 1985. Muscle stood for millions of unusual small creatures lurking everywhere, proving some acronyms are totally silly and completely unnecessary. While not millions, at least dozens of them could be found throughout my parents' house. Officially, there were 236 figures released in the US. While distributed via vending machines in Japan, US figures came in 28 packs of 4 carded figures, and garbage cans of 10, with the latter 2 being randomly packaged, resulting in a wonderfully terrible trading card-like possibility of duplicates, also resulting in often intense trade negotiations. The American plot was much less Game of Thrones, and much more mid-80s WWF, as Muscle Man and the Thugbusters battled Terrible and his Cosmic Crunchers, and that was it. Which again, for me, was plenty. To be honest, without a cartoon, I wasn't even aware of any story until today. Well, about a week ago. For the figures, there was also a belt figure case, a Rock'em Sock'em Robots-esque ring, it was glorious, an interesting looking board game that I think was some kind of dance competition, a horrible NES game, and a magnificent, totally epic checklist poster. Well, the initial figures were flesh tone. Okay, yeah, I'll admit it. They were pink. Later figures were a rainbow of colors, which I didn't care for, as I feel the detail of the figures shine more in that flesh tone. Yeah, it's still pink. Similar to other toys thus far covered in this series, the value was apparent to kids and parents alike. You get a lot for a relatively small amount of cash. In the United States, the most minimum purchase got you 4 action figures. That's pretty good for play value. Buy a couple of them, and you have an awesome good time. While Playthings magazine listed it among the 10 best-selling toy lines of 1986, its championship reign proved short-lived. The line was killed, bodies slammed by Mattel. Being unlicensed from Bandai, the profits weren't as big as other Mattel properties, such as He-Man or Barbie. In Japan, you can still get them from vending machines. Most of what you see here are modern figures purchased by Paul last year. And you can still read the comics. In fact, in Japan, there's a much more detailed and in-depth history than I'm even touching on here, some of which did make it to the United States. So you should really look into it, including some really, really cool action figures. In the US, they haven't really been seen in their original form since the 1980s. Although in 2015, Super 7 began releasing Masters of the Universe muscle figures, a fitting crossover for any 80s kid. Since then, Super 7 has expanded to still cool, but slightly less logical connections such as Alien and Iron Maiden. Hopefully, in the near future, we see some legit, more authentic muscle figures. In the meantime, if you're in Japan, hit up a vending machine for me.
Thank you guys for watching. So these histories are part of a series. So you can see the short form ones that I do with myself and Penny here, and the longer form ones where I'll have this history attached to a longer part where Paul and I talk about our personal experience with the toys, a little bit of background that we know, things like that. So be sure to check those out. Penny will like them because she can grow up playing with some awesome, awesome toys, right? Thank you guys. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and Penny and I will see you at the toy store. Hi everybody, welcome to Josiah is Right. I'm going to talk to you today about the history of Mask.
Our story, as does the story of pretty much every toy line of the 1980s, begins with President Ronald Reagan. Reagan's FCC ended regulations that prevented cartoons that were essentially toy commercials. In those days, cartoons were expected to educate or entertain, not just sell toys. This deregulation, along with syndication, allowed kids like me to watch not just on Saturday mornings, but both before and after school. Between 1984 and 1985, cartoons featuring toy lines increased 300%. As the middle of the 1980s approached, Kenner, once the small kid on the block, now an action figure powerhouse, sought their next Star Wars. Noticing the success Hasbro was having with Transformers and G.I. Joe, Kenner developed a concept centered around vehicles and action figures. After all, both kids and full-grown men love action figures, at least in my house. Mask featured smaller action figures, think of them as G.I. Joe's little brother, inside of transforming vehicles. The Deke-produced cartoon, lasted for 75 episodes from 1985 through 1986. The toys were released over 4 series and lasted until 1988. The toys themselves were spectacular, with motorcycles that became helicopters, jeeps that became boats, and trucks that became taller trucks. The first line of the toys was the most iconic and the most awesome, with the second being a close second, and the third and fourth becoming significantly more gimmicky, focusing on racing, and the last series included Split Seconds, a sort of hologram co-pilot, which was basically a figure 6-year-old me just didn't know what to do with. Today, collecting can be tricky as there were plenty of parts to lose, and I lost plenty of them. Also, the masks themselves, some were short and some were long, and I don't know why. Regardless, they were really, really, really easy to lose. Those missing masks offered special powers to the characters in the show. Mask itself stands for Mobile Armored Strike Command, with a K. I guess you either have to spell mask wrong or command. This special force, led by Matt Tracker, battled Venom, the vicious evil network of mayhem, which was led by Miles Mayhem. There was also a comic book, but it didn't last very long. There was even a trilogy of games released for various systems including the Commodore 64 and Amstrad CPC, but unfortunately not the NES. Until 2008, Mask was largely forgotten when a Matt Tracker figure was released by Hasbro, who acquired Kenner and its properties in the early 1990s. The figure was part of the G.I. Joe 25th Anniversary line. Mask was even mentioned in Transformers Prime, teasing a larger universe. In 2011, IDW released a New York Comic Con exclusive crossover comic, Unit E. Oh, I just got that actually hearing myself say it. Mask crossed over with Micronauts, and for some reason Battleship and Candyland, among others. In 2015, Hasbro then announced a big shared toy movie universe, for some reason thinking it'll be just like Marvel's. Ask DC how easy it is to do a shared universe. In 2017, Hasbro released the crossover we actually want, at least in comic form, with Mask encountering the Micronauts, Action Man, Visionaries, ROM, G.I. Joe, and Transformers. The best part? We got a new Matt Tracker figure, which was part of the IDW Hasbro Revolution box set that I was lucky enough to get at Comic-Con in 2017. The once consistently Caucasian Matt Tracker was now African-American and described as Elon Musk meets Idris Elba, an engineering genius and intellectual bad boy. Which to me sounds a bit like Tony Stark. They really want a shared universe. The movie has been on again, off again for the last few years, but as of April 2018 seems to be on again with Gary F. Gray directing. If we do get a live-action feature film, we'll certainly get some new toys. Hopefully, they'll also release some retro-style toys again. I could use a bigger vehicle to fit that Matt Tracker action figure. Wait, can movies also be toy commercials? Maybe I should ask George Lucas.
So be sure to check those out. Penny will like them because she can grow up playing with some awesome toys, right? Thank you guys. Hi everybody, and welcome to Josiah is Right, and I'm going to talk to you today about the history of Mighy Max. Mighty Pen. Polly Pocket, maybe.
Before we even mention Mighty Max, we have to talk about his sassy older sister, Polly Pocket. Sister toy line, that is. Chris Wiggs first created Polly Pocket in 1983 for his daughter Kate, using an actual makeup compact to create a tiny house for an even more tiny doll. He licensed it to English toy company Bluebird Toys, and Polly Pocket was released in 1989. With Polly Pocket selling tiny people hand over fist, why not monster heads? In an effort to cash in on kids just like me, Mighty Max was born. Released in the US by Mattel, the original toy lines included Horror Heads and Doom Zones. The toys are gnarly looking playsets that opened up to reveal some kind of adventure therein, with the exterior reflecting the monster or doom within the playset. The sets always included Max and some kind of setting-related creature. Frankenstein's monster, snakes, things like that. Scorpion creatures. You get the gist. The deep and intricate plot for the toys told us that Max inherited his dad's hat, which warped him to these various nether regions. He was a 90s kid, so he had to put it on sideways to look cool. And it actually said that on the box, with Max saying it out loud, so you know he's cool if he says it. The story came to us via comics on the box itself. The original Max's hat would change color based on the zones he morphed into, and Max was a more squat figure as he was presented as more of a kid. In 1993, the world got a gritty, dark, and at times downright scary cartoon. Max was now a bit more grown up, and the figure turned from a chubby little boy to a slender teen, and Max's iconic red hat would remain iconically red. Playsets were also added to reflect plots from the show. The cartoon changed the story by adding the Yoda-like chicken, Virgil.
And I'm a fowl, not a chicken.
Virgil is really a brilliant device for an exposition machine in the show. He explains all the crazy Egyptian backstory that shouldn't make any sense, but you buy it from the chicken, fowl. There's the stoic but not so stoic bodyguard Norman, voiced by my personal favorite character from Night Court. Max himself was voiced by Rob Paulson, who voiced, well, everyone you love from every cartoon ever, and still does. The show was produced by Film Roman, most famous for The Simpsons, but before that, they made their bones with kid shows like Garfield. The show was actually created by Rob Hudnut and Mark Zaslav, the latter who had previously worked on some of the iconic Disney afternoon shows, including Tailspin. The first show aired on September of 1993, and begins with Max getting a bird statue, which contains the hat for some reason. The cap then sends in places, including Skullmaster's lair, the main antagonist for the show, voiced by the ever-menacing Tim Curry. Come on, he's this guy, and this guy. Even as this guy, he's still totally scary. The show follows Max, Virgil, and Norman as they travel through the world and history, allowing for semi-educational epilogues to the shows. The show was lighthearted but heavy and violent, at least implied violence. This, with a superb voice cast, elevated the show beyond the quality of the cheap 90s cost-cutting animation. 40 episodes later, the show ended in the second season with a time-bendingly beautiful and tragic finale. Besides the toys, in 1994, McDonald's released a Happy Meal line which included a fixed Max, meaning he was part of the playset, permanently so. 1994 also saw a totally forgettable game released for the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. There was a Tiger handheld game, which I'm sure rivals the other games for their terribleness. Unfortunately. Micro toys boomed in the early and mid-90s. Just about every major toy line had some kind of miniature version. Certainly not a new idea, but by the mid-90s everything seemed smaller in a good way. The appeal to a kid is simple. You get more stuff for very little. A toy industry analyst said in a 1993 New York Times article, "If you reduce the scale of a product, you can get a bigger environment in a small space and can have more items. This is the whole mystique of Mighty Max and Polly Pocket, wonderfully complex environments in a small space." It also made business sense. In the same New York Times article, then editor of Playthings magazine, kind of a dubious title if you ask me, said, "The buzz in the industry this year is good value at affordable prices. Some manufacturers have dropped expensive toys that they announced at the beginning of the year. There is a big emphasis on toys under $20. The financial value appealed to parents, and the play value appealed to kids. As a kid with very much limited funds, Mighty Max filled that void. Granted, he was very quickly pushed aside as Galoob created amazing miniature sets for their Star Wars Micro Machines line, which I'm sure was true beyond my own toy chest. In 1993, with the help of the cartoon, Max's sales peaked. In 94 and 95, they began to decline exponentially. With the line dead and other issues, I assume, Bluebird toys, along with Max and Polly, would be eaten up by He-Man. I mean Mattel in 1998.
I have the power.
From Mattel.
While Max hasn't been heard from since the mid-90s, Polly Pocket was produced in the United States until 2012, and other parts of the world until 2015, with Brazil being the last holdout. Brazil really holds on to things, don't they? Polly Pocket was relaunched in 2018. Hopefully she'll make Mattel Skull Mountain-sized stacks of money, and we'll get a Mighty Max reboot. The reboot we truly deserve.
Thank you guys. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and Penny and I will see you at the toy store. Hi everybody, and welcome to Josiah is Right. So I am going to talk to you today a little bit about the history of Exo Squad.
Exo Squad was first conceived by creator Jeff Siegel in 1989 as he worked on Challenge of the GoBots. Jeff wanted to make more robot-like stuff. They had a name, Exo Force. Enter Playmates Toys and a trademark filing necessitating a name change, and Exo Squad was born. Exo Squad had a significant influence from executive producer Will Mineo. He influenced both the design and the story. Mineo puts it this way: "It's a common misconception that I created the show, when in fact there was plenty of development done by the time I signed on to do it. I hope to refine it, but the series' actual creator is Jeff Siegel. My contribution was in the designs of the characters and helping to make them internally consistent as the scripts came in. The concept of the show was tied largely to Jeff and my love of Japan, and the show's coming out of there. Story editor Michael Edens also played a significant role. So what was the story they created? In the future, humans have colonized Venus and Mars. Along with Earth, they're known as the home worlds. The harsh climates of Venus and Mars were tamed by genetically engineered super labor force called Neo-Sapiens. 50 years ago, the Neo-Sapiens rebelled, however, they were defeated. The Universal Animation Studios produced series itself begins with Exo Squad, led by J.T. Marsh heading off into space to fight pirates. With the entire fleet gone, Phaeton, a Neo-Sapien leader, engages in a successful revolt. This time, the Neo-Sapiens control all 3 homeworlds. The conflict for the vast majority of the show's 52 brilliant episodes is the battle to get those homeworlds back. All of Exo Squad and many of those secondary characters made up the most underrated toy line of the 1990s. The toys were made by Playmates, most famous for, of course, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which they are still most famous for and are still making. The Exo Squad toys were produced over 6 series from 1993 to 1996. First, the boxes were really cool, and the box art was spectacular, with a painted movie poster style on each cover. The toys center around the E-frames, which feature great playability. All those spring-loaded missiles were awesome, but also easy to lose. Each E-frame, or ship, came with a 3-inch pilot. These figures were smaller than a G.I. Joe, but featured an impressive amount of articulation for such a small figure. This articulation allowed them to believably pilot their E-frames. Later series include Microlines, Jump Troops, those freaky genetically engineered Neo-Sapiens, weird stealth or water or transforming or animal versions of E-frames, and eventually even Robotech. The Robotech toys didn't fit in with the E-frames or were just smaller vehicles. There was also a single issue of a comic book from Topps. It wasn't even number 1, it was number 0 for some reason, and it reads much more like a promo for the series and the toys and things than a comic, which allowed players to pilot some of the E-frames from the members of Exo Squad. Ironically and sadly, the game came out after the series had been cancelled. The series was revolutionary. The characters were 3-dimensional. The good guys weren't always totally good, and the bad guys certainly weren't always totally bad. And often, they were very much justified in their action. The plot was deep, and the stakes were very real. Maybe a little too real, as the series ended after only 2 seasons. The show was shuffled all over the place, playing as early as 4 a.m. and eventually being paired with Monster Force as part of the Universal Action Hour. The war against the Neo-Sapiens had actually been resolved, and the series featured a vague new alien threat. Rumors suggested that that threat was actually from the Robotech universe, although it is more likely that Playmates acquired the Robotech license due to the comparisons to Robotech with Exo Squad. There was talk of spin-offs or sequels, but the money didn't make sense and nothing ever came of it.
Thank you guys. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and Penny and I will see you at the toy store. Just not Toys R Us, but a good toy store. Bye. Hi everybody, and welcome to Josiah is Right. So behind me, you'll see a large portion of my toy collection, and a large portion of that collection is Kidrobot vinyls, particularly the mini vinyls. So this video is going to be all about Kidrobot. It's going to be about the background of Kidrobot, my collection, and of course some tips for collecting Kidrobot for you guys. So first up, that background.
Kidrobot was founded in 2002 by Paul Budnitz, originally making the toys in his garage. Budnitz also makes bikes, not in his garage, via his company Budnitz Bikes. He also founded a social network that you've probably never heard of. The idea behind it is that it's ad-free. Initially, it was an ad-free Facebook, but it shifted to being much more art-based, which connects it well to Kidrobot. Kidrobot was purchased by NECA in 2014, and Budnitz moved on to the things I already mentioned. Kidrobot is currently located in Boulder, Colorado, though that retail location has closed. The purchase allowed Kidrobot to be much more efficient and streamlined, getting product lines out, such as the much-delayed Megaman line. NECA also upped the licenses, expanding their deals with Fox, including other lines outside of Fox, such as Sonic the Hedgehog, Adventure Time, and many more.
Basically, they keep making stuff that I love. When the Megaman line came out and I was nearing completing my collection, still haven't quite completed it, they released the Sonic line, so of course, I have to start that, which technically I haven't yet.
They even partnered with Crayola, so now Penny has her own Kidrobot collection. Oh, and these. Kidrobot makes these, and Penny has these. Kidrobot was, and is, built on artist-designed toys, bringing unique and bright visions to the toys, and now mainly connecting those unique visions to various licenses.
The concept is that the toys themselves are art, with each being limited on some level, with prices ranging from $5 to $25,000. I don't have enough fingers to count that high. This pricing and limited nature means for the most part, the value will go up. One way they drive up interest in their products and value is through this little guy. This is a blind box.
Each blind box comes in a case. The cases usually contain 20 boxes, with each case and each box being random. Figures are sealed in the box and in a foil bag that even Superman couldn't see through with his X-ray vision. The rarity varies from 1 or 2 out of 20 to 1 out of 100, and some with question marks, and the always rare and desirable silhouette figures.
Now, my collection. I began collecting in 2008 when my friend Jesse bought me my first blind box. It was a Simpsons one, appropriately, and I believe it was Maggie, although it's been a long time, so my memory's a little shaky, because, especially from that first run, I don't recall what I got when I got it. I wasn't as astute a collector and wasn't doing some of the things you'll learn about in this video. At the time, they weren't as readily available. I can recall 2 stores that I could get them at, Barnes & Noble and Urban Outfitters, and those were the only 2 places that I knew of, other than online, but at the time I really wasn't shopping for these online.
First up here, you'll see my Futurama collection with Zap Brannigan that always has an eye for Leela, and my favorite among them, the Bender figure. Bender's chest plate actually opens up. You have Calculon with his Oscar, and we see the Dawnbot without his hat. Unfortunately, I don't have his hat. We then begin on with The Simpsons, which is my biggest collection. You can see at the end there Dr. Nick, all the way down to Zombie Maggie next to Mr. Burns with Bobo, Donut Homer, and the large-sized Lard Lad, regular Homer, regular Maggie to balance out the other side. We have Grandpa, Apu, Groundskeeper Willie, and then jumping over to the next shelf, you see the Mole Man there is actually the rarest of all the figures I have, as well as Devil Flanders. Those are some of the more rare ones. The Simpsons ones, our superhero ones, onto our Duffs, and going finally onto the Adventure Time one. The Abe Lincoln is the rarest of the Adventure Times. I have nearly a complete set of these. Bubblegum Princess there, and of course Cake. The Megaman line begins with Breakman, who was a Comic-Con exclusive. The rest you can see Cutman. His scissors had to be attached separately. They would not fit in the box. The shiny metallic Megaman, Megaman without his helmet, as in Megaman 2 at the beginning. We have Mr. Sparkle, and of course, my one South Park Cartman as Osimo.
So now, on to collecting. The thing that's awesome about Kidrobot is you have to open those blind boxes to find out what it is. That's where the value comes from. It's unlike other toys where opening it diminishes the value. Here, you need to open it to find out what you got. That's also the downside, because you're sure to get duplicates doing that. I've gotten plenty. You just hope that the duplicate you get is a valuable one.
For example, I got 3 extra helmetless Mega Man figures, which sold for $35 each. Not a ton of money, but 3 times the original price is not bad. Also, Penny has Mega Man's hair.
Blind box collecting is a bit of a gamble. It's very hit or miss, but there are ways to go kind of around it and sort of improve your odds.
Some comic shops, such as Fat Collectibles, will allow you to open them at the counter and swap them out if they have one at the register from that line. Other places, such as certain puzzle zoos, have unboxed ones available for purchase, which they will sell at regular price, regardless of the rarity. I Am Retro, which sells online, also offers a similar swap at conventions. You can open up another box until you get one you're happy with. Speaking of online buying, regularly check eBay. Some list prices are a bit high, others are fair, but keep your eye out for a low-priced auction to get a great deal. I personally set up alerts for when new items are posted. Online, the not-so-rare ones often sell for less than the original price, such as Jake from Adventure Time. I've had at least 4 of these. It didn't resell one for more than $8, some for less than that.
When you start to get a large collection, you'll need to track it. When you're out there in the wild and you can't remember if you have Groundskeeper Willie as Freddy Krueger or not, and he's only $5, but do you really want to spend $5 if you already have that Groundskeeper Willie? You'll need some way of tracking those figures.
I created a Google Doc so I can update easily at home and check when I'm at a comic shop or at a convention.
Kidrobot also does periodic vault sales online. I've personally never had any luck with these. Every time I try to get something, it's already sold out. They have really, really cool, rare stuff. Some of it's extremely expensive. Some of it's just lines that are kind of forgotten or different things like that. But it's very much worth checking out just to see what they have. Also, they do great exclusives for Comic-Con, such as the Red Mega Man and the Breakman you'll see behind me. Really great stuff for Comic-Con. A lot of the Comic-Con exclusives I've collected over the years I've actually sold just to get more of other stuff. The Comic-Con stuff is usually the bigger ones, but they'll do occasionally like a mini blind box such as the shiny blue Mega Man. That was also a Comic-Con exclusive.
As these are art-based toys, display is critical. Each of these is a small piece of soft vinyl art. I personally use shells from the Container Store. They come in various colors. I prefer white as the brightly colored toys really pop against that bright white. They're about 2 inches deep and range from 2 feet to 4 feet long.
On the wall behind me, I sort of randomly put them up, but I always try to balance out even amounts of shelving on each side of the wall. So to my right and to my left, it's balanced in terms of total footage. Finally, I'm going to open up a blind box. So this blind box is 100% sealed. So totally sealed. And I also recommend, if you want to resell it, open it up with a knife to kind of get your cleanest opening, because these things are sealed with tape and then glued down. You're going to be fighting that glue, but if you want to keep it clean, if you're going to try to resell it, if it's a duplicate, make sure you keep that in mind. So, as I said, have a cutting implement, get that part open, and sort of do your best to carefully pull the glue. This one's not super overly glued, so I got it pretty clean. So we're pulling out our Simpsons Kidrobot, and you can see with the 25th anniversary, these have a lovely red bag as opposed to the normal foil bag. And as I open it up, oh, I'm excited to see Radioactive Man, which is not a duplicate for me. I do actually have Milhouse's Fallout Boy and Bart as Bartman, so this goes to my sort of superhero collection. I also have Comic Book Guy as the collector, which is all from this series. So I'm excited to add something to my collection that I didn't have before. Really legitimately excited here. So I don't know if it's coming off, but I really am. That was not one of my duplicates, but I also do have a few other duplicates. So right here, I have 2 boxes. In the Megaman box, we have Electman, and in the Simpsons box, we have Hank Scorpio. So what we're going to be doing over the next few months is I'm going to be giving those guys away. I'm going to be giving away any other duplicates I get. So all you have to do is comment below. So leave a comment. What is your favorite of these guys? Which one would you like? That's all you have to do. Winners will be randomly selected, but just please leave me a comment. There's going to be these ones. I'll post comments whenever I get other duplicates. So any duplicates I get over the next few months are going to be your guys if you want them. All you have to do is post a message why you want that one. I will randomly select a winner probably each month over the next couple months, probably through summer I'll do this. So just keep sharing your favorites of this collection and maybe my collection and your own collection. And what are your tips for collecting? So remember, I post new videos every Sunday and Thursday. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And in this case, be sure to comment and you can win your own Kidrobot. So there's these guys, and like I said, there will be more, and I will post what those ones are when I have them in the comments as well. So thank you guys for watching, and good luck collecting.